Success in Canada, trust, and the immigrant business person in Canada. Click here the subscribe button and set up the alert. And if the content of this specific video is useful, hit the like button. Well, let's remember one universal truth here that happens everywhere and anytime. People prefer to do business with people that they trust. That's very true, and the way you see today in large companies is how they manage their brand and their reputation. Why big companies are worried about their branding? Because of that, because the branding reflects a degree of trust with their client base. And like even you see things like 5-star reviews on Google or something like that. Smaller companies tend to build trust still along the same lines, but in some more different ways on the day-to-day. It has to do with person-to-person relationships. You know the owner, you know the team, they have a good presence in the community through endorsements, word of mouth, warm referrals, or validation of all sorts, or participation in a local community, in an industry association. But the bottom line here is that trust typically leads to more profits. If you want people to buy from you, you need them to trust you. And that is what's gonna drive your profits. And if you can get more people to trust you, you're gonna have more profits. So let's look at some things that usually hold an immigrant person back here in Canada and how to overcome these challenges. The first area that we see this happen is in sales, a chronic underachievement of the sales potential. And there's mostly 3 reasons. And these reasons are all due to emerging market mentality. What do I mean by that? Let's look at these 3 things. First reason, people keep trying to talk to somebody at the top of the organization. Why? Because back home, that's how you do business. You convince the big boss. People don't question the big boss necessarily. So the big boss said, well, this is a great company. I think it's a good idea to deal with them. People are not gonna say, well, I don't think so. I think you're wrong, boss. In emerging countries, people tend not to do that. In Canada, it's very common, right? So what happens here when you keep trying to reach somebody at the top, you are ignoring the fact that the decision here is going to be made by a number of different people. Actually, the person at the top is relying on the advice from their team and their feedback, buy or not buy, from their teams. So that focus, oh, let me just convince the one person on top, that does not work in Canada. The second thing that works very well in emerging countries, and it doesn't work so well in Canada, is like, oh, let's show that we offer great quality at a low price. Well, back home, we need to look for bargains. We have societies that typically the purchasing power on average is not fantastic. So people are always have that mentality of cost cutting and something like that. When you go to a G7 country, there is very clear that symmetry between value and price. So we even have a phrase in Canada that's called, you get what you pay. So if you are looking and seeing this level of quality, you're never gonna be expecting to be paying this level of price. There's a symmetry. If I believe there is this quality, I understand the price is gonna be here. If somebody tells me the price is here, I'm not gonna believe that their quality is up here. I'm gonna say, well, if your price is here, it's because your quality is kind of here too. So there is that symmetry in the mindset of Canadian business community that you get what you pay. So there is a disconnect in this message, oh, but we give you great quality at low price. People tend not to believe you. People will be, well, where's the catch? What are you not telling me? And again, that leads you to the lack of trust scenario. So the third thing that happens is that very common, I see that happen a lot, where people tend to focus at one aspect of what they sell, like great solution, great product, great service, whatever, right? But they provide an incomplete value proposition for different stakeholders at the client. That's the third problem. You forget that you are selling to multiple stakeholders, multiple decision makers. Yeah, sure, the person that will be your buyer is this person, but once they buy this product or service internally, everybody in their organization is considering, okay, what's the impact on our team? So there are human resources implications. What are the payment terms? So there are financial considerations. Even like logistics, or if it's a product, like you're thinking about how is it packaged? Is it translated? Like you were thinking about many other things. People are thinking about your long-term viability as a supplier. They say, well, how do I know you're going to be around next year? I'm not just going to close a deal with you today because it seems to be favorable, but I want to know that you're here for the long run. So show me your plans, your business plans, and how do I believe that you're going to be here for the long term, because I don't want to be switching suppliers all the time. So all that package and all these other considerations, they end up being part of a larger value proposition that is very easily forgotten if you are not used to this type of business environment where the sales is made to a collection of stakeholders, many different decision makers, right? So these were the 3 key points, and they all have to do with the emerging market mentality that keeps trying to sell to somebody at top, talk about high quality with low price, and focuses only on one aspect of the value proposition, and the rest of the stuff we're going to figure out. So these 3 things erode trust of the other side. They say, well, you know what, nice people, they seem to have a nice product and all, but yeah, no thanks. There's too many unknowns here. Lack of trust. So remember, this phrase is very important. In Canada, trust comes from the technical fit and from preparation, not from necessarily endorsement from the boss. It's not because you met the boss at a cocktail or at an event and they seem to like you and think that what you sell has value, that now they're introducing you to other people inside the organization. You don't walk into that door with the sale already pre-made. No, not at all. Your convincing is only starting now. How you're going to work with all these different stakeholders. It's not complicated, but you have to hit the right notes. And how do you do that? Well, good news, we're here to hold your hand if you need help. And we have our platform called Your Business in Canada. You have here a link in the description. Come on board and we will be by your side helping you build your success in Canada. But let's look now at the second area where trust tends to be a problem. We spoke about sales. Now we're going to talk about unnecessary friction with service providers. What does that mean? Well, it means that a business operated by an immigrant business person and the Canadian providers of services and products, like the suppliers, sometimes have a different understanding of what is obvious. What is obvious to you may not be obvious to your lawyer, to your accountant, and vice versa. So I'm going to give a few examples here too. So the first example is, in Canada, there's a very widespread understanding and agreement about the concept of billable hours. That means Canada is a place of relatively high labor costs, right? Highly educated population, high cost of living. So people have to get paid well if they want to live here, right? So that means people will want to be compensated for the time they're spending with other people. They're not going to be giving free advice. And also, that's the first thing, right? There's understanding that there's billable hours. The second thing, there is very strong responsibility and potential liabilities given by professional regulations. For example, if I'm an accountant and you come and ask me some questions, and later you go and you execute on something and say, oh, why did you do this? Oh, it's because so-and-so told me that over a Zoom call. That may bring professional liability to me as an accountant because of the advice that I gave you. So professional service providers in Canada, accountants, lawyers, and others are very careful to make sure they will only provide advice to you, technical knowledge to you about your case, if they are under a retainer agreement, meaning they have been hired by you, and that usually means being paid by you. That is a demand by the certification, the professional bodies, that people cannot just give free advice there without commitment, because if somebody makes a decision based on the advice that you gave, it may have repercussions to the person who gave the advice. So this is one of the reasons why typically you need to have a signed contract with conditions. And remember, there is that idea again, you get what you pay for. It's not only about the quality and price that I was talking a couple minutes ago. It also has to do with a very large symmetry between the value that you're receiving and the cost that you're going to pay. For example, if you're hiring the services of a Canadian bookkeeping company, but then you have somebody in that firm that will also act as a CFO, you're going to be paying both people, right, at their level of expertise and knowledge and different billable hours. Or a law firm may have an intern working on your file at a lower hourly rate, but then when the senior lawyer comes to have a look and see what needs to be done, it's going to trigger that different level. So in Canada, people understand all that and are used to that. So again, trust in this case here means that in Canada, there is trust in general that the provider of services has the knowledge and is acting on good faith. What I hear a lot from entrepreneurs, business people from emerging countries is like, well, I think they're charging me too much. Oh, I don't think, they're charging me just to answer my email, or they're not really doing anything here, they're sending me all these bills. There is this distrust, this mistrust, this lack of trust, where people think that the service provider is out there to take advantage of me, right? And this is not good. So remember, we're talking about trust here in general and how trust impacts the success of immigrant business people in Canada. Impacts on both ends, because if you don't have a trust relationship with your service providers, you're always kind of unsure if you're making the right decision from a certain tax angle or a certain legal angle or accounting angle. If you don't have the ability to build trust with your market, with your client base, with your pipeline of business, with your potential clients, then you're not going to have sales happening, right? So success in Canada boils down to trust on Canadian terms. And there is this need to realign for success. So on sales, that means trust comes from technical fit and preparation, not from an endorsement from the boss. And on the cost side, trust comes from the fact that the provider has knowledge and acts in good faith. You need to have that trust up front. And of course, ask them questions and come to that understanding, but you are operating in a society that thinks that way. There's 2 more videos here that will help you with this topic. Keep watching them. Thank you.